Next, we have Maggie Swift, who is a third year in environmental science and will be discussing how elephants interact with a seasonally fluxing landscape and what might happen when the water holes that weave this tapestry disappear.
So I know I promised you all a talk about elephants, but first I'm going to start by talking about satellites. So bear with me, the elephants are coming soon, but my work relies on satellites to try and map tiny water holes on an African savanna and figure out how elephants move relating to these water holes. Welcome to the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, or KAZA for short. KAZA sits at the confluence of 5 different southern African countries and covers over 200,000 square miles of savanna habitat. This is a map of the surface water that covers the KAZA region. Scientists around the world use maps like this one, created from satellite products, to study permanent water sources like rivers and lakes. However, these maps can't catch seasonal changes, and many of these features are too small for a global water product to catch. For example, imagine you're an elephant living in this tiny red box. According to this map, you have no water to drink. If you wanted to drink your water for the day, you'd have to travel hundreds of kilometers to the nearest river. And being a very large, over 12,000 pounds animal, you have to eat a lot during the day. So this kind of commute just doesn't work. This scenario that I'm painting for you isn't realistic. We know that there are thousands of tiny water holes peppered throughout this region that fill up during the wet season and dry up during the dry season. The animals know they're there too. Animals during the dry season will hang out near rivers where there's a lot of green vegetation, even in the dry season. But during the wet season, when the vegetation flushes and all these water holes fill up, the animals will move out using these water holes as stepping stones into the interior of the savanna. So if the animals know about these water holes, and we are scientists and we're studying these animals, we need a way to look at these water holes from a landscape scale. With a team of scientists from Duke and the World Wildlife Fund, we've managed to accomplish just that. There are 3 obstacles standing in the way of our research. First is the size of these water holes, second is cloud cover, and third is just the question of what is water from a satellite's point of view. For the first one, this is pretty easy. We use open source data from the European Space Agency satellite Sentinel-2, a pair of satellites that can see up to 10 meters square, which is just perfect for the size of these water holes we're looking at. Second, as you can also see from this image, clouds are a huge problem for remote sensing. They get in the way of trying to see what's on the ground. But by taking multiple images over several weeks from the same area and stacking them on top of each other, and then cutting and pasting around the clouds, we're able to deal with a lot of those issues. Finally, to deal with our water problem, we turn to infrared light. Through a trick of nature, infrared light, water absorbs much more infrared energy than the vegetation or the soil that might be surrounding these water holes. Use infrared indices and create a value for each pixel, and then compare that value of their infrared light to a threshold and say if it's above this threshold, it's water, if it's below, it's not water. So in sum, we took Sentinel-2 imagery, we removed most of the clouds, kind of hard to get rid of all of them, and we used infrared light to find all the water holes. Here, I'll let you watch them fill up and dry out as I give this talk. So in total, we found over 2 million water holes for this region. That is a lot of water that's being left out of ecological models. So my next step for my 3rd chapter of my dissertation is going to be to take these maps of seasonal water that we've created and combine them with collared elephant data from Namibia to ask questions about how the flux of this water in the landscape and vegetation on the landscape can drive elephant movement. As vegetation greens up much faster than water holes can fill up, I'm interested in finding out if elephants are following the change of vegetation or if they have to wait for the water holes to fill up first. So now that we've taken a trip all the way to southern Africa, you might be wondering why we care. For starters, human-induced climate change has already had drastic impacts on the climate. You might not think that 1 degree Celsius is a lot, but at 2.5 degrees Celsius of warming, the Okavango River, which is the lifeblood of this ecosystem, is predicted to decrease in stream flow by 18%. Animals and plants and humans in this region will have to deal with 23 more drought days and 10% less rainfall per year. when a fraction of these tiny water holes that I've been telling you about become seasonally unreliable because of this drying, what might happen to these elephants and other animals that are dealing with or using these water holes to access vegetation in the interior of this landscape? It's critical to understand how animals are using this tapestry of water now, so that when it starts to unravel in the future, we can anticipate and address where and how these creatures will be harder. Thank you to everyone who's worked with me on this project, and I'll take any questions.